Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Frank. Welcome back to Perspective Shift.
Good morning, Vietnam. You ever see that movie?
Yeah, I know what you're talking
that
about.
was a good one.
Hell yeah. It's a great day here in the Perspective Shift studios, kicking the week off. So what are we diving into today, Frank?
We're going to talk about the present moment, which
I love it.
We're going to do it in the present moment as we talk about it.
The only way to talk about the present moment
You have
is
to be
in the present
able to
moment.
do that, yeah. I wish I was present with my wife all the time.
Make life so much more smooth.
But yeah, it's kind of in conjunction what we've been talking about over the last 2 or 3 podcasts about the breathing and the breath. And it just so happens synchronistically, I got an email yesterday from Eckhart, not personally, but it was Eckhart Tolle, and he was talking about the most simplest practice is just following your breath and it keeps you in the present moment. So I was like, oh, that's interesting, because that's really what we're doing here. Whenever we do a task, or like whether doing breath work or meditating or going to the gym or what have you, when you put your focus on that, it actually brings you into the present moment. And people are like, okay, what is the present moment? It's kind of when time stands still. You could be active.
Stillness is a good way.
Yeah, whether you're meditating or hanging out with your friends or at work, it's not letting thought carry away in a different place to where you can't respond to the present moment. Even though you're presently thinking about the past or presently thinking about the future, there's a sense that I'm not here. Mm-hmm. I'm not aware of what's happening around me. And so when we utilize the breath as focus, all of a sudden we become more present. So what happens when we're present? When I'm present, I have these very interesting thoughts come in, and when I'm actually present and a thought comes in, I act on it, don't think about it. Because a thought isn't a problem until you start thinking about it. In other words, hey, get up and go do this. Well, why would I go do that? Maybe I should wait till later when I'm doing this and that, and then I'll do all those together. Or well, maybe I should do it now. All of a sudden, it sucks up your energy, your glucose, they'll say in biology, from your brain and stuff like that. But like, you can just feel it. You can just feel this agitation. So if you go back to your breath and start breathing, you start to relax. When a thought comes in, act on it as best you can. This is when the great ideas come in.
Absolutely.
Einstein was known to be like working on a problem he was working on, and all of a sudden he would notice himself overly thinking it, and he would get up and do a myriad of different things, either pick up his violin, go for a walk. I don't know what equation it was he was working on, but I think he got up to brush his teeth, and in the midst of brushing his teeth, it came to him because he wasn't thinking. He was, you got to focus on brushing your teeth. Yeah. So little acts like chopping water, collecting, collecting water, gathering water, chopping wood, is what we're talking about in the present moment. When you're there, it's the most satisfying thing you could ever do. Mm-hmm. And that's where the ideas come in. And that's where the concepts that we're talking about become easier to understand.
Absolutely. One thing I've also noticed about the present moment is what's pulling us away and pulling us out of the present moment is not necessarily like a task or, a situation or something we want to do or don't want to do. It's the story and how we narrate it in the mind. It's the chatter that we don't like about a situation. And Frank and I always use the phrase, chop the water, or excuse me, chop the wood, chop the wood, carry the water, like.
But in the winter, you actually do have to chop the water. So
right. But, and what we're implying when you hear that phrase is, before, or I can't remember the saying exactly, but it's like, before awakening, you chop the wood, you carry the water. And then after awakening, you still chop the wood and carry the water. It's not saying that certain situations aren't going to come up or you're not going to have to do certain things, but the story, the way you narrate it, the way you go about it is totally different. Mm-hmm. Here's just like a really throwaway example, but this happens to me each week. Like, I hate taking out my trash. I do. I really hate it. And every
Karen will break you that habit. I'll tell you right now.
It's me and my brother live there. Somehow I got roped into being the only one who takes it out every week. And there's always this thing about in my head, like, what the hell? Why isn't he doing this? And like, I start laughing to myself every Wednesday. I'm like, what I'm upset about, what I'm annoyed about is nothing to do with taking out the trash.
Yeah.
It's the story I've got around
true.
taking this out. Why am I the one doing this? What, I could be doing so much else. God, this is annoying. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I've worked so long. Why doesn't my brother take care of this? Why do I do this every week? All that bullshit. That's what I don't like. It's not taking out the trash. Taking out the trash is whatever. It takes me, 3 to 5 minutes to go walk around, get all the trash, bring it out, and roll it to the street.
It's like the first, like, when I become a millionaire, I'm going to hire someone to take out the trash, right?
It's just so funny to me because what I've realized over the years is it has nothing to do with the activity. It's the stories, the head chatter around the activity. That's what we mean when we're talking about chopping the wood, carrying the water. Things don't change. How you look at them change. And this is very much so how you're going to help bring yourself back to the present moment, because you never leave the present moment.
No.
It's the mind that leaves the present moment because you get attached to this thought and that one, and I got this to do, or I got to be here. That's where we kind of get caught up in it.
Yeah, it's like being at a movie theater and having a conversation with somebody not even about the movie and wonder why you missed the movie, even though you were in the movie theater. So you can never not physically, in understanding, be present. But where is your mind? And it is true. It's like when you actually, if you don't tell a story at all, it's just you're actually responding to whatever's around you, and it's really satisfying.
You're simply observing.
Yeah.
You're simply witnessing.
Yeah.
Good idea bringing up the movie thing too, because people can relate to that. Like, how many of us have started watching a movie and we go off in this tangent or this thought and we miss 6-7 minutes, and we're
happens with my wife all the time.
All the time. It happens a lot of us. Same thing with reading a book.
Yeah.
You'll read that page and you'll go a couple pages and the mind's thinking about something and you're like, I have no idea what I just read.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working on. That's what we're training, is the focus. We have lost the ability to focus through the sensationalism of like all this social media and all this. Everything is a competition. Like, think about it. If you sit down for more than 5-10 seconds, you naturally try to like pull your phone out just to scroll through the news or the social media or whatever. You're in line, at the bank, or you're in line waiting for somebody to get gas. And we feel like we need to fill this. Like, I must be doing something. We don't ever just sit there and observe. It's like, nope, can't just sit. I must be filling, the experience.
And at some level, all of us human beings understand this. I remember years ago, this is like when cell phone cameras first came out, and I remember the first thing that I saw that went viral was a woman walking in a mall. And she was evidently texting, and she was walking while she was texting, and she walked right into a fountain.
Oh my God!
And it was and it went viral because it's funny because we all can see ourselves. And she didn't, like, the fountain had like a 3-foot wall on it, and she hit it, and she went face planted.
She lost her balance,
but she didn't even see it. She walked into it and then fell as she's still texting.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that was like the first viral thing I've ever seen. I'm like, this is crazy. And you kept watching it and laughing with your friends and shit.
Yeah.
But you realize how engulfed was she with that texting that she didn't even see the fountain or know anything else was around us. Good thing if she wasn't walking on the street, she would have walked into a car. Like, dude. Like, yeah, it was like she went into a fountain.
And now we carry this over into our driving too, which is even scarier.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, we all think we can just send that quick text message, but we're not thinking about, how much is lost within those, moments.
Yeah. And even with the technology on cars, it seems to be more accidents these days because I think people are getting distracted. So
we're all distracted all day long. And that's kind of the point of this episode that we're talking about. How do we not get distracted?
Yeah. So we finished up last week. We were doing, the week before we were doing the 1 minute breath, and then we added stuff onto that. And what I mean, the 1 minute breath, we took a stopwatch, and for 1 minute, you so how many breaths you're doing in and out your nose. And the goal, if there is a goal, is to get to roughly around 7. And and if you keep doing this, over time you'll naturally get to 7 without even thinking about it. And then you notice you start to feel good. But the conscious part of it is really the kickoff of feeling good, because even if I get to a point where I'm breathing perfectly, and that's just running off my autonomic system, and I'm not like consciously aware of it, I then have to give another conscious something else, give them a conscious to actually start to amplify, because we always want to expand. We always want to grow. Because a lot of times when we're in situations that we don't like, it's not that it's bad, it's that we're done with it. Like, people complain about stuff. I'm like, and that's when people say, oh, you should be lucky you live in America, you have all this stuff. But it's like, yeah, that's not really a good example to use, because what it is you naturally always want to expand. But now you go into an area where you're expanded into, but you hung out there too long and weren't conscious in that moment, being present in that moment. You then think it's that job, that relationship, whatever it may be, and all of a sudden it becomes laborious to take the garbage out. I'm like, what happens there? It's because we got so used to subconsciously doing these things where there's no more focused effort. Yeah. And then, but if you keep doing this, you keep coming back to your present moment, like breathe as much as you can throughout the day. At the beginning, it's arduous and work, but after the end, it's like you actually enjoy it. Why? Because me coming from unconscious into conscious is a brilliant thing. I think that's why when we wake up in the morning, it's like we're always grumpy, because we were at this beautiful place, like sleeping. If you had a good dream or whatever, then you wake up like, oh shit, what's going on?
Slam back
into reality. Mm-hmm. And again, then you wake up and like, oh, wait a minute, I love this, And you start to realize, what is it about this? It's the transitional periods going from conscious to, or unconscious to conscious. And the studies show that the average person utilizes only 5% of their consciousness. So you're only conscious 5% of the day, or 5% of your life. Now, if that never changes, that's okay. And I look at it this way, and I use this in the power of paradox. But what am I going to do in the 5% of my time? What conscious things are going to bring in? To me, it's more of that than expanding my consciousness to like 6%. Mm-hmm. I think that will naturally happen. I don't even know what percentage of conscious I am. I guess if you ask my wife, she would give you a very low number. But
a very low
number. I don't know. No, I shouldn't keep ranking. I think I said 3 times. I got to be done with saying stuff about my wife on this podcast. I met my quota. But
my quota for the month.
Yeah, but anyway, when you remain conscious, in that 5, if it's only 5% of the time you're conscious, what are you conscious of? And if you literally bring it back to your breath, and I know me and Mike keep saying this, but there's something about it.
There is.
And all of a sudden you realize you feel better, you start elevating. Because when you're breathing, you can't really think. But thoughts are still coming in. And what happens when you start to feel better, a thought comes in. Like, call a buddy up and bring up this proposition. And you act on it as best you can. Okay, my buddy's probably asleep right now. Now's a good time to call. But yet, you set in your calendar to call them whenever it's appropriate. Again, most of the times when the thought comes in, it's actually really is the appropriate time, because the universe has things in timing already laid into us. We just have to learn to trust it. And the more we stay present, excuse me, the more I focus on this present moment by utilizing stuff like breathing, all of a sudden, the better I feel. And the better I feel, the more thoughts and ideas come from my businesses, for the podcast, or my relationships. All of a sudden, I start acting on those, and things start to get more advanced for me. Let's use the word better or greater. I like to use the word greater, because better is the determination that there's something worse. I'm not coming from something worse. I'm just elevating to a greater level than I was before. Mm-hmm. But before was good. It was really good, because and even the elevation I go to at that point, I have to elevate from there again. Yeah. I can't stay there, because that will become stagnation. I don't want that. We don't want that. We're constantly moving. It's just being conscious of how this physical world works in the spiritual realm.
And everything is changing. Always and forever changing. Nothing stays the same. And this is why a lot of us get, stir crazy, or a lot of us, want things to stay a certain way, is we inherently know this. Seasons change, days change, and we have these moments, and we're like, I just, I'm at the precipice of my life. I'm at the best part of my life. I just want this to stay the same. I just want it, this title, this status to just remain. And we don't really mean that.
No.
and it will get stagnant, but we're trying to hold on to something that never has been meant to be held on to. We've never tried to explain this, but we're fighting to maintain this title or this, certain level of money or certain level of fame, whatever it may be. We're looking at we're grasping at something that is fleeting.
Yeah, and the more we stay in the present moment, the more we learn to trust that everything will work out to even a greater extent. Because again, we talked about this before. You always have trust in something. You either trust it's not going to work out, or you're going to trust it's working out. So trust isn't a factor. And even letting go, we let go all the time. Like I was telling Mike this, a lot of us will pick up certain thoughts and go through the day with them. It would be like equivalent of me having a discussion with somebody and then I have to get up to go to the bathroom. So I decide to take the chair that I'm sitting on with me. I'm like, no, I leave the chair there. So when I return, it's there. I actually let go of the chair. It doesn't mean I get rid of it. It doesn't mean I throw it out. So when you let go of stuff, it doesn't mean it disappears. Because you could have a collection of a million things in your house. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you try, like if you're driving in a particular car and you have another car in your home and you're thinking about that one that's in your garage, that is problematic.
Can't drive two cars at once.
But having 20 cars is not a problem overall. It's just when you're in the particular car you're driving, you should only be thinking about that car. If you think about the other car, that's where the problem occurs. Then you're like either want to sell them or you think you need more of them.
And that's a great analogy. Let's also tie that into, excuse me, what we were talking about with like actors. So Frank and I will kind of explain this, but we come to this plane, this Earth experience with a script. And you want to kind of branch off on that we were talking about earlier today?
Yeah, so kind of like a contract, right? So a lot of people use the word contract. So you come here with a contract, just like an actor that's taken on a role will have a contract to play in a movie. And when the greater they become as an actor, they trust the director. They trust the script. Obviously, the script was given to them, and they fully went into it. But they don't really know what's going to happen until they get on the set. They have no idea. That's why whenever you watch behind the scenes of a movie, are you okay, man?
Yeah, I'm just dying over here. Sorry.
He's dying over here.
Something went down the wrong pipe.
Yeah. So when you watch an actor like doing interviews on the movie, they'll tell you about the experience they had. Not necessarily the movie, because they're like, okay, tell me about the character. I'll give you a brief overview of the character. More of the questions like, so what was it like making this movie? And they'll go like, oh yeah, I started out, I thought I was going to do this, and then all of a sudden the director's like, no, we're actually going to Antarctica to shoot it. Like, why can't we just do it in the studio and look like it's cold? Oh no, I really was like, holy shit, I think that movie Revenant was done with Leonardo DiCaprio and what's his name, Tom Hardy. Okay. They literally were in the cold. Like they put them. Yeah, I guess a lot of times they do that too, so they don't have to act as much. They can just bear with it. But I don't think the scene with the bear was real though. I hope not. Leonardo was like, I don't get paid enough for this shit. I'm not going to fight a bear. But anyway, when they go on the set is actually in the area where they're filming from rather than the studio, it adds another element of difficulty, which is something that the actor's like, really, can't we have a green screen here? Mm-hmm. But then it's like when they do it, they're like, thank God I did that. Like something happened. It was a great experience. And all of a sudden it expands them. And they'll talk about that. Like they'll talk about the most grueling scenes in a movie that they had to endure. And like you realize that's why they're doing it. They're not doing it to.
That's why we do it.
Yeah, it's why we do it. So when you get into that position of realizing we have a contract, but release all the concepts of what has to happen, like let go of that, and then see what happens. And there's the power of paradox. Act on your expression as best you can. Head into it. Set the character up. And then adjust the character as the scenes go on, not like have to tell the director, cut, can we take a break? And the director's like, what's going on? Well, I don't like the way that other actor is doing what they're doing, and it's throwing me off. And the director's like, that's their job, is to throw you off.
Exactly.
All right, because I want you to act. So let's do it again, and don't focus on the other actor, but focus on your response about the other actor. I'm setting this on purpose. And if I overly explain it, you're going to overact. And we don't want you to overact. We want you to be pure in your acting. We want you to be present in your acting. Because if you don't know what's happening, the present is the only place to be. But if we keep doing it 50 times till we get it right, now it just becomes an act, not acting in a sense.
And we all can tell when those moments happen.
Yeah, it's like saying hi to everyone. Hey, how's it going, Jimmy? Every morning. Hey, Jimmy, how's it going? Like all of a sudden, like, do you even notice Jimmy?
Well,
like,
kind of like our reality shows nowadays. Everybody knows those are bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's because you can tell. When you're watching it, you can feel it, and you're like, yeah, this is, totally scripted.
Where in reality do people actually act this way towards each other? I don't see it. Maybe that's why we watch it, because it's bizarre. But, what's really reality TV? Your life is reality TV because somebody's watching you. There's so many cameras out there. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. Every moment,
you ever think about that?
Taped.
Like, people are like, be careful what you say. I'm like, it's too late for that, buddy.
Right?
Yeah.
It is kind of nuts, though. We live in this world that's always turned on. Cameras are always rolling. A lot of people get anxiety from that, too. People are afraid to, go viral or say something stupid. And it's like, again, adding more and more of this head chatter of stuff you got to worry about, and people are so afraid to be themselves because, I don't want to, get canceled. I don't want to say the wrong thing,
Yes, I learned this lesson years ago, so all the cameras and stuff watch me. It doesn't bother me anymore because when I was in catechism, Sister Anne said to me that God's always watching you. So my anxiety started back then. I'm like, what do you mean he's always watching me? And then she added in, she not only knows what you're doing, he knows what you're saying, you're thinking. I'm like, fuck me. Oh, shit. I just cursed. Like, I went into this moment.
Oh, shit.
Then I was like,
I'm
know what?
sure burning in hell.
All right, like, you know what? I'm over it. Like, I don't give a shit who's watching anymore.
I'm for sure going to hell.
Yeah, I don't necessarily outwardly come out and say things because I know it may offend people. I don't need to say stuff, but I don't really care what people catch on tape anymore. And you have to get over that because that's how the universe is designed. The cameras and the privacy is what we have with technology is just a fractal of how the universe works. Now, like come at it whatever you're used to, but we're made to break out of this. What would it look like if your whole life was out on a videotape? Well, for one, who the hell would be watching it? Mm-hmm. Right? Like unless you're doing something really spectacular, right? Which we say entertainers do, or something really, really ridiculous, you're going to get watched. If you're doing something really ridiculous or really spectacular, you're going to get noticed. If
Social media has shown us that.
Yeah.
You know, we see that all day long now.
Think about what goes viral. It's either really ridiculous or really fabulous.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or, super frightening.
Yeah, exactly.
We play off of our key emotions, you know?
So, understanding what contract we have coming in and realizing and putting trust that it's not just going to work out, it is working out. And that's kind of the concept. And as you start to stay more present and through the breathing and whatever modality you use to stay present, these concepts come to a different understanding, different level. So there's no end to the concept of the present moment. There's just multitudes and infinite amount of levels of it. And that's why you always have these aha moments. That will never stop.
Well, in the present moment actually affects that future and that past moment. We were talking about this earlier before we were on air. I was watching Gaia not too long ago this last week, and there was somebody speaking on there, and they were explaining the concept of time. A lot of our listeners, you've heard the concept that time does not exist. We absolutely created time, and that's very much so true. But how we talk about stories, how we share, how we think about our lives, we think about it in this linear fashion. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's a consecutive thing. And this teacher, this individual that I was watching, began to explain time in a different way. They were like, we shouldn't look at it as this linear fashion. We should look at it flipped the other way. As this time, past, present, future are stacked on top of each other. That's a more accurate way to view time rather than consecutively, or horizontally. It's like a vertical stack of past, present, future and how those build and affect each other. And in this present moment, we're actually affecting the past as well as affecting the future, and how we interpret and experience past and future.
Yeah, and how we're doing that, it's not that what we're doing in the present moment affects the future, because the truth is there really isn't a future.
Yep, it's only now.
Yeah, and that's so we're experiencing this life. Say it's a game, right? It's like experience. If you're playing football, there's certain rules and regulations within the fundamentals of the game. Obviously, the football field is 120 by 120 yards. 120 by 53 yards. And then there's particular rules in it. So there's a structure there. But beyond, in the game of football, that's the structure. But there's other areas in life where the structure doesn't exist. So when you actually understand it, we do experience life linear. So like Mike was talking about how everything's stacked on top of each other. Go back to the old days of going to a movie where there was a canister where it was a reel of film. Well, if the film is all rolled up, it's actually coiled up almost in a spiral. And every footage, every shot, frame, I should say, is there right now. But in order to tell the story, I have to push each frame past the light to have it projected onto a screen in order to have any continuity of the story. And the way humans, the brain works, it's roughly 24 frames per second creates an adequate timing. Anytime slower, it would be slow motion. Anything faster, it seems like you listen to the Chipmunks, yeah.
Yep.
But yet, the end of the movie is already here. And then let's get creative. Let's do it like Quentin Tarantino did. You take the movie and you chop it up and you put it in different times, like he did with Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Now, if you stay to the end of the movie, you'll understand the timelines and how they work. But if you cut out, I'll be like, that was a weird freaking movie. Mm-hmm. So even though he took what we deem to be how the story should start this way and end this way, Quentin's like, no, I could shoot it that way. But actually, no one actually shoots a movie directly in relationship to how it's going to be seen. Why? Well, for practical reasons, right? If it's getting dark out, let's shoot all the scenes in the light, and then we'll do all the ones in dark. And I imagine when they do a Tom Cruise movie, like, let's do all the stunts at the end in case Tom gets hurt.
Seriously.
Because if he gets hurt, then at least we could put some other stuntmen in it. I'm just assuming that, but so he'll shoot all the actually narrative scenes where he's doing dialogue and stuff first. So if something goes wrong, they could just get someone that looks like him to do it. But so I'm assuming that. I'm not in the movie industry, but I'm assuming they would do that. But it's never linear based on the way of watching it. But yet the story's told, and it's like, so this linear perspective starts to get a little interesting. And it's like, yeah, now they're starting to tell stories from different angles and different stuff. How can they do that? Because everything exists now. Just like if you listen to a particular piece of music, every piece of music, I should say, is actually playing right now somewhere. I can get access to it if you have like a Spotify or what have you. But I'm actually listening to this particular piece of music. And that particular piece of music keeps me in the present moment. But if I'm listening to Stairway to Heaven thinking like, I wonder what's a better song than Stairway to Heaven. For one, I'm not enjoying Stairway to Heaven, and there is no other better song than Stairway to Heaven.
And there is no better song.
Yeah. If anyone has comments about that, just
we'll talk
keep
about
it to yourself.
that after the show.
But then you're not actually enjoying the piece of music. And I think that's what happens is we seldom. So when you notice life isn't going good, go back to your breath, start breathing in, whatever modality of breath work you want to do. And notice that it's not the moment that's the problem. It's that I wasn't fully there. Mm-hmm. It's like driving a car and looking at a video on YouTube. It's not going to be, wonder why you hit the tree.
Yep.
It's like, holy shit, this happens a lot to me. It's like,
and that's kind of what we're all walking around doing. We're having these conversations with, employees or employers or, colleagues. And we're so caught up in our head about, the situation that went on that morning with your spouse or your kids or, that shitty fight you got in the night before. And it's actually affecting what's going on in that moment. Yeah. And we don't realize it. And that is just showing us how not present we are and how that carries into what we experience and call, that next step or that next experience.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much we are not actually present during the day. Like when you really begin to look at that, and this is something Frank and I want to challenge, those listening to.
And ourselves.
And ourselves. The amount of focus that it takes to be present, the amount of letting go that it takes to be present, just having that reminder, having that, top of mind will begin to change how you experience life.
Yeah, and what happens is now when I notice some agitation in my body, I'm not used to agitation, so that brings me back to the present moment. I don't try to figure out where did I go south. Like that could have started this morning,
and that's
I just
creating a
noticed
story too.
Yeah, exactly. So right when I notice the agitation, that's when I go into my breath or whatever other form of being present, like if you're driving a car, noticing the texture of the steering wheel. But the cool thing about the breath, it's always there, whether you're in the car or at work or what have you. I could be in the middle of a conversation with someone and start doing a breath work, and they would never know it.
Correct.
I could start.
I do that all the time.
I could start tapping. They'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
I could. There's a myriad of things I can do. Like tapping really works, and tapping's always with me. But if I'm in public,
you don't look like the crazy guy.
Yeah, and I don't mind looking like the crazy guy. But if I'm breathing in and out my nose, filling up my diaphragm, nobody knows because everyone's breathing. Mm-hmm. They don't notice it.
And that's a great thing that you said is we don't notice it. So if we're not aware of it, that's when. See, what I've realized about the breath and the present moment is when things are, let's say, overwhelming, going haywire, non-preferential, you just don't like it, a shitty situation. In that shitty situation, if you were to analyze it, it would be overwhelming thoughts. You would notice that your breathing is short. And it's like, oh, whoa. So if I can just go to these, bypass having to think about it or figure it out and go directly to the breath, I'm now bringing myself back into homeostasis, bringing myself back into relaxation. And I don't have to think about it or, challenge the story or the self-talk. I'm bypassing all that and going directly to the breath to bring me back.
And then what you notice is that situation really isn't shitty. It's still a situation, a circumstance happening. So, I've read this before. I've heard people talk about this, and I'll take their word for it that 99% of the problems we have are in our head. So there are times it can be present and stuff will say what we call go wrong. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong, but that's roughly 1% of your life is tragic, if you will. So, if something happens, don't always say, oh, this happened because I wasn't present. You'll learn, when you start doing this, you'll learn to discern that. Then there's some times in life where that's part of your contract. There's nothing you could avoid to doing that. One of the things, we're all going to die, that's somewhere in our contract. I don't read the fine print, so I don't know when that is,
Seriously.
Although my wife seems to think that, it was funny because she said, she's like, I want to die first. And I'm like, well, I don't think you got a say in that.
I don't think you have a say in that.
Yeah, and then one day we're sitting on the couch. This is like a month ago. She's like, hey, when you die, what do you want me to do with your ashes? I look at her. I'm like, you're assuming I'm going to die first. I'm like, why would you bring that up? It's like, well, in case you do, what do you want me to do? I'm going to do whatever the hell you want with them. I should have told her to take it to Timbuktu and do something crazy.
Created some story.
Yeah, some whack out shit. You sprinkle them in the bag. I don't care what you do with them. Yeah. But it was funny how she assumed hey, what do you want me to do with your ashes?
Yeah, you're definitely going.
And then and then she's like, do you want to know what to do with mine? I'm like, well, apparently I'm dying first, so I
you won't have to deal with that.
I don't need to worry about that now.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And also another thing too, about the breath. When you bring the attention and the focus to the breath, there is nothing else that can sneak in or bother you because you're now taking all the focus off of whatever the head chatter is or whatever the thought or whatever you're saying to yourself, and you are putting it on something. And so what you're doing is you're actually retraining or training your focus. And so when things, that are on your mind begin to make you drift and worry and things like that, you will also have the ability to refocus more easily when you do a practice such as going back to the breath, because you'll realize, oh, okay, I'm off focus here. My focus is on this head chatter, what I'm worried about, what I've got to do after work today or whatever. And so, you're simultaneously training not only the breath, but also the focus. So I want to bring that up too, because focus is a big part of this. Like that's what all these consumers and marketing companies and big corporations are all after. Is they're after our intention. It is we are a society of attention. They want our attention, and that's why we pay these actors, celebrities, these what do you call those people on social media now? Influencers. Yeah. That's why we have them. Is they're capturing attention, and that's the dollar sign.
Yeah, and if you're not conscious, if you're not present, they'll get you. Yeah, and then you have the buyer's remorse after because you realize you were taken. So one of the practices Mike and I would like you guys to do this week, and then notice how it works. When you're in the middle of a conversation with someone, just bring your attention to your breath. What you'll notice is you'll hear everything they say. Yeah. You really will. And then you'll be able to respond better. Just try to stay there and actually don't try. Just do it and see how it works. And then you're going to notice when I go right to my breath while people are talking, all of a sudden I'm absorbing everything that they're saying. And then I don't try to overlay like what I need to say next. I'll appropriately say something when they're done talking. And it's like this brilliant orchestra of music, orchestration of musicians playing. They know exactly when to play and when to flow. They're not like tapping their toe waiting for their turn. Mm-hmm. They're just listening to the other musician, and all of a sudden, when they're listening to the other musician fully, and they just know when to play. And when you stay in the present moment, just breathing in your nose, slowly out your mouth, or slowly out your nose, you're slowing your heart rate down. You're actually absorbing so much information because you're more in a theta state. And then when there's a little, like the universe will say, okay, now's your time. And then you open your mouth and interview. And those are the best conversations when you're present.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's very contrived. Or like, I came here to say something. They said something. Okay, when are they going to shut up? I'm going to say this. When are they going to shut up? I want to say this. When are they going to shut up? And then you say the thing, and it's like, that's weird. Yeah. Like, if you kept your mouth shut, I would have said it 10 minutes ago. It would have made sense then. Like, there's some times where things just left. But if you give your attention to your breath, you're actually giving your full attention to the present moment, which means whomever's in front of you, you're fully devoted to what they're saying.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up because that's like one of the best examples. We've all heard that saying, most people are not listening to respond. They're just, or they're just waiting for their time to interject into a conversation. I forgot what the saying was, but it's like most people are not listening. They're just waiting with their next statement to say in a conversation, and it often doesn't make sense or it feels forced, and it's kind of weird, and it's because we do that. Like, oh, I want to share this. I want to make this about me. Oh, I want to put this in there. And you're waiting for that person to finish, missing everything that they're saying just to say it. And it's like, huh?
And there's trigger points because, like, I remember I told this, was it last week or the week before, about the conversation my wife and I had on the couch about her being poisoned.
Oh, yeah.
I'll briefly tell the story. It was a Sunday morning. It was like probably a month ago now. And, my mind was elsewhere. And it was on good things, but it was still elsewhere. So, therefore, it was giving me a headache. And she's talking. Next thing you know, she's like, yeah, so I was in Florence and I walked into a cafe and I asked for coffee. They said, we only have espresso. I said, okay, give me 2 shots of espresso. And next thing you know, 2 minutes later, she was in the bathroom throwing up. And one of her students came in and said, hey, Miss Dempsey, they're poisoning the espresso. And then right when I heard her say that, I'm like, what? So it was a trigger for me that my wife is being poisoned. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, she just looked at me like, I got silent and realized, oh my God. So I was triggered by poison and being poisoned. That took me. So I wasn't aware, but I have these trigger points. So people can be in conversation and have these trigger points that they'll respond to it. But she looked at me. She's like, I was telling you about a freaking dream I was having. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Yep.
But I wasn't present with her. And she busts me all the time if I'm not present. So she's like my Mickey to me, Rocky.
You'll know about it.
Yeah, I'll know about it.
But it's true. These are the more we can bring ourselves into these moments, into this moment.
Oh,
it's it's relaxing. Number one, you feel better. You feel more confident. You're able to accomplish more, and we don't realize really how much or how our thoughts are really all over the place, and we're very scattered individuals. And so it's like little techniques like this, and same thing with the breath. It brings you back to this moment right now, and it's in this moment that you're actually experiencing what's real, and the thought of things and how we think things should play out and all of that is actually what clouds, this true moment, which everything is okay and everything is fine.
Staying present is like driving your car on a clear day. When you're not present, it's like driving in the fog in San Francisco. It really can be hazardous. You can do it. You can fake your way through it and hope you don't hit something. So yeah, do this when you're with a conversation with somebody. Just stop breathing in and out. Don't even try to anticipate what to say. Just breathe in and out. Give your full attention and watch. You're going to respond brilliantly to these people. And what happens is, the reason it's great is because the feeling that's going through your body, there's no resistance. Me have to inject something because I feel I need to, creates resistance in my body. And then I want to blame the other person for not letting me speak. That was the problem. Hey, this is, then they'll say stuff like, this is not a monologue. This is obviously a monologue, not a discussion. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but it was the tension. I've done that to people too, where why aren't they letting me talk? And as I'm thinking that, I'm not even listening to them. And so I'm blaming them for not letting me get a word in edgewise, where if I just sat there and just relax, I'm like, okay, there's a reason I'm here. I didn't realize I was signed up for a lecture, but and all of a sudden, watch comes out of it. It's brilliant. It really is. The present moment, when you stay focused, has everything you need in that moment. Nothing more, nothing less. But when we think we need more, we leave the present moment. Again, that's like leaving the chair to go to the bathroom and realizing I need to take the chair with me. Well, how? That's ridiculous. I'm like, well, that's what we do. We're not thinking.
Oh, I must take this with me into this next activity.
Yep, I must.
Which then affects that activity. The way you perform, the way you experience that activity. And I do want to also mention, you'll have very, what we would call serious situations come up, that
1%.
Death, sickness, illness, family illness, whatever it may be. And just because something isn't preferential or something isn't something you would necessarily want or desire, it does not mean that it's bad. And we've been kind of taught to really push away from things like that and try to distract ourselves from things, when these things pop up. And the more we take them head on, the more we, I guess, gain the lesson or gain the experience in why that situation did come up, And I've realized that personally, on my own journey and in life, and as I experience things, learning the way, learning the path, learning about yourself, coming into the present moment, learning how to breathe properly. These aren't techniques to stop things that are bad from ever happening to you. That's not what Frank and I are talking about. And those 1% things are going to occur. And when they do, and you handle them with this sense of poise, taking it head on, it changes the whole way you experience that. And you will be able to see the gifts that are that lie there, because nothing. I once heard somebody say, when these bad situations come up or these things that we don't like come up, there is always, forever, and there will be some sort of gift or something better that happens from it. And so, rather than looking at how painful or how horrible or how bad a situation never should have happened, try to be with it and try to see, or try to pick up on what else am I not picking up on from this, or what is this showing me about myself? Because from there it gets easier to sit with something.
Yeah. And what we deem to be tragic, the reason it comes across as tragedy is because we seldom experience it. So the first time you're going to experience a loved one dying, it's going to be a lot more tragic than the fifth time. It doesn't mean it takes away the love of the person that you miss. So these 1% things that happen, why they're tragic. Now, what I mean is, say you were shot at, or say you had to kill someone. Just say you were in a situation where you had to do that. That'd be somewhat tragic. But if you were a soldier being trained this and you've done it multiple times, it's not as tragic anymore because it's more in line with the behavior of what I'm signed up for in this world. So what's tragic to me wouldn't necessarily be tragic to other people. Why? Because what happens to me 1% of the time might happen to somebody 30% of the time. So when it's happened 30% of the time, they're used to it. You know, it'd be tragic if I had to run 200 miles, right? But to David Goggins, it'd be like, let's do it. You know, because I've never done that. I've never run 200 miles. But it doesn't mean I couldn't get through it. It doesn't mean I couldn't pursue it. But it'd be very painful, more painful than David Goggins would experience, right? But imagine the first time the story he writes in his book, You Can't Break Me, when he had to run 100 miles. He did it on a track. And by mile 70, like, his insides were falling out.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah, but by the next time he ran 100 miles, that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? He had to break through these, and that's why he does what he does. It's not about pushing the body to the physical limit. It's about pushing the mind to tame the body to its physical limit. That's the difference here. So yeah, we're not asking to go out and put yourself in position to get over it. It's going to happen. And but the more present you are, and the more you learn to go to the sacred place of the breath, the more it shows you opportunities how to get through this, how to deal with it, and then you get to understand these concepts, right? Because until you have the experience, you can't understand the concept. Like, I've had people tell me, like, hey, a buddy of mine's child just died. What do I say to them? I'm like, say nothing. Because, or just sit there and listen and go with that. And something, if you're really present, you'll know what to say, but there is no line like a bumper sticker to say to people. I'm like, you know, everyone's like, oh, you know, just be quiet and sit still with them. Just breathe in and out. And when something occurs, like it triggers you to say something, then say it, you know, and then don't second guess it, because it's the universe saying this person needs to hear this. But don't try to preempt it and say it every time someone dies or whatever. You say the same thing. All of a sudden, it's like, people pick up, when people are in that position, they really pick on, like, I don't care what they were thinking. There is no present. There is no future when a loved one dies. Everything stops here, now. And they can tell when people are phony or not.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, it's crazy. So, and what's phony? It's phony is trying to preempt something, like just trying to say this, like, oh, you know, time heals all wounds and stuff like that. And they're thinking, like, you know, what the fuck do you know? But if you stay present, you'll know exactly what to say. But there is no script anymore. It's the universe coming into your head, or you just remain silent and be present. Because tragedy, the reason it's tragic is we're not used to it. We're used to the other 95% of mundane shit that we count. Like, what happens if this happens? I'm like, well, it never happens. It's all in our head. So we walk around like tight as a freaking shell. You know, the amount of pressure I put on my body, I could have created my own pearls.
Literally.
You know? Yeah. But then I'm learning to relax. And, you know, yeah, I know something's going to happen, tragic, but I don't sit there and think about it. And things have happened, and I got through them and learned from them. And then, like Mike said, they oddly became a gift because they broke me out of the worst fear. Because you think about them prior to them happening, you know. But, you know, the more present I am, the more adequate I am to deal with any moment, anything that happens in the moment. Circumstance, situations turn into challenges rather than problems. Yeah, and so do this. This is the practice for this week and for the rest of your life. Is when you're with somebody, just breathe in and out your nose. Nice, slow, deep, filling up your belly, empty it out. You don't need to do it loud to where they can hear it. And then just be in the present moment, and then see what transpires.
See what gifts come from that.
Yeah,
you know, because you will begin to notice a difference when we pull ourselves out of the mind. You know, we bring ourselves into the moment. It's noticeable in little ways and then in big ways.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you'll pick up on these little things like, oh wow, I never noticed that before, and then
people
in bigger ways.
Yeah, people, because when I get in conversation with people, and I just fully listen. People like they know something was interesting there, and they're like, I love this conversation we had, and I'm like, I just say, because we were both present, at least most of it. We were present. It was the present moment that you like. Is then they're like, okay, I want to have another conversation with Frank. I'm like, I had nothing. I was part of it, but you could be present with yourself and feel the same. Mm-hmm. You don't need to go try to revisit that conversation. That's not how it works.
What it is, at least in my opinion, is when we haven't visited this space or had that feeling many times.
Yeah.
We like to give that away to something or someone
outside of us. Yeah.
Yep, and say the reason I felt good was I was talking with Frank.
Yeah.
Not I generated this feeling of feeling
Yeah.
good. And through repetition, through practice, like we're talking about here, recognizing the breath, recognizing the present moment, you start to see that, oh, it wasn't A, B, C, or D. It wasn't Jane, Johnny, Joe, Smith. It all came from within.
Yeah, and Jane, Johnny, Joe, and whatever, Jane. Those are expressions on how you express it. Yeah. So when we become present and we elevate our energy, what we do with it are mere expressions. They're not the causation. Yeah. There's a correlation with what I do, with how I acquiesce with the world and doing stuff, but there's something deeper that's the true causation. It's very difficult to put your finger on it. But me believing in the rabbit's foot's going to make me lucky, it really wasn't the rabbit's foot, but the rabbit's foot has something to do with it because it reminds me I'm lucky. But it's really not coming from the rabbit's foot, because why would I say that? Well, what happens if you lose the rabbit's foot?
Yeah, you're screwed for eternity.
Yeah, just go buy another one and remind yourself. It's sometimes, having the rabbit's foot is a permission slip to remind yourself you're lucky. Mm-hmm. So that's, and that's really what's working. But the rabbit's foot has a play in it. There's a correlation, but it's not the causation. The causation goes so deep to where, I always tell people contemplate it, but, you'll come to different concepts at different levels. But when you get to that level, there's more of that mountain that you realize, wow, there's more of this world I haven't to explore. But realize there's life and science can drum up the correlations. And there's something there. But the causation goes way beyond the point in which I could even comprehend. And most people, all people.
Yeah. I don't like to speak
for all people, but I come to understand that the human mind can only go so far. But the human mind can correlate certain things, and it's beneficial to our existence on this planet. So I'm not knocking that. But as we expand it to higher realms, like what we thought was impossible years ago is now possible by the average person. Mm-hmm. Well, years ago, if we actually performed, say, heart surgery, say 200 years ago, that person would be probably crucified at the stake for being a witch.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, they brought someone back, that normally would have died. So stuff like that. Imagine going back 200 years ago with an iPhone.
Exactly.
Who would you call?
People would think,
you'd be calling people from the future.
Yeah. You wouldn't be able to use it.
Yeah, like you try to call
people
someone.
Would say, what is this witchcraft? What is this sorcery?
Did you ever see that Quantum Leap, that TV show?
No.
It came out like late 80s, 90s, I believe. And this guy had
was
a guy.
Was that sci-fi?
It wasn't really sci-fi-ish, but it has a sci-fi element to it.
Oh, I mean the channel Sci-Fi. Do you remember there was like a channel?
Oh, I don't even think Sci-Fi Channel was out yet.
Oh, okay.
This is and so this guy had a gadget. It would look like what was cell phone. We didn't have cell phones yet.
Yeah.
So they had the big brick ones.
Yeah.
But he have this thing. It goes hit this thing, and all of a sudden it would correlate that something was going to happen. And this other guy would have to go in, and the other guy was like a shapeshifter. Yeah. He can turn his body into a woman of male, but when we're watching it, we see him. But when the other person sees it, they see whoever they're supposed to be. So it was a very interesting concept.
That is interesting.
But the other guy was somewhat invisible to everybody else, but not to this guy. And then he would go in and change the circumstance situation to where it played out in a preferential way and where we deem it. But I thought that was very interesting. Well, here we are. We're here doing that. We could get information and stuff like that, but we still can't seem to get out of our way until we breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is funny how we do that. It's constantly us getting in our own way. But that's how we know to bring it back is through that.
Yes.
hitting the wall.
The walls, yes.
You finally go, okay, I see it.
Yeah.
At least for me, that's how I began
and
to
then the wall
experience it.
becomes your friend, because
You stop blaming the outside world. You stop blaming others.
Yeah, because now when you see the wall, you don't run into it. You turn right or left. So the wall now becomes your friend. It's a detour, right?
Yeah.
So we keep, like, I'm supposed to be going straight here, and I keep running into this roadblock. I'm like, what's called a detour? If you actually went right or left or whatever direction it's indicating, you would get around, and then you would learn something about this detour that you wouldn't otherwise. So stop thinking that we know what we want. We'll know and recognize what we need. And there's nothing wrong with wanting. And sometimes our wantings correlate what we need, but not all the time. That's why when you're like, okay, I wanted this thing and it came through, and you sat down, you did this meditation, and you wrote these affirmations out, and this thing showed up. But then the next time you do it, how's it not working? I'm like, because it's not part and parcel with your story. But maybe there was a point where it was. And so that worked out there in the wanting and the needing. But the universe gives us what we need, and if we can drop the wanting, it becomes, I'm like, well, now I want what I need. I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting, because most people are trying to get to a place where they have enough whatever resources to where they never want again. Because this wanting has this anxiety. If I want something, it means I don't have it. If I don't have it, I'm not in a place to receive it. And it's a very quandary type of situation. That's where the power paradox comes in. It's like, yeah, I don't need it, well, I don't want something. The Buddhists talk about this, and there's something about it, but it doesn't mean you don't experience those things.
Exactly.
Yeah, money's going to come your way. The love of your life will come your way. And do you see why does it come easier? Well, because we're not fighting through the process of how it happened. You tell the story of how you ran into somebody where you weren't looking. Where if you go on a dating app, you already have preemptive judgment on that, That's got to be a weird thing to do. And it's not that it doesn't work out, but when you're like, okay, you're looking for this specific person, you're reading the charts, so now you're judging based on their height, how they look, rather than banging into them at a coffee shop, and having a conversation, or meeting them at school. You met in the 6th grade, and when you got out of high school a couple years later, you look at them again in a different way, and it's like, now, holy shit, I want to be the rest of my life with you. Like, those are the surprises that we want. Not like, everything I write down must turn out this way. I'm like, good luck with that. Things will, though. Things will. Watch. They will.
Yeah,
because sometimes we're really good at reading potentials, right? We are. We have a little more psychic abilities in us, but not everything is meant to be that way. So loosen up on that. Drop all insistence on how it's supposed to turn out, and watch. It becomes brilliant.
Just how special something can be, or how beautiful a situation can be. Yep. It will blow your mind.
And when you get lost, just take it back to the breath every time. Yeah. Breath is something you always have.
Always with you, you know.
Wherever you go.
And
if the breath is not with you, you're in a different place.
Yeah, you're 6 feet under.
You're 6 feet under. Or spreading rashes somewhere where, my wife wants to do.
Tells you where. Yeah. Exactly.
My wife will do that. She'll just come out and say, like, we weren't discussing it. It's like, hey, where do you want your ashes buried?
Just out of the freaking blue.
I'm like, there must have been something that triggered it. I wasn't paying attention. Maybe it was on a TV show, so I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then my response, like, why do you think I'm going first?
Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah. And no, it's funny. I'm like, just, wherever you want. She goes, no. You're not going to do this. You do this with dinner every week. Like, you got to give me some. I'm like, all right. And then I'm like, Hawaii. She's like, which island? I'm like, Maui. She's like, all right, but, I'm like, just wherever. I don't give a shit. Like,
and you're going to realize, later on in life.
I'll give her a suggestion. She'll go to Tahoe and drop from there. But just the fact that I said Maui just ended the conversation,
He said wherever.
Whatever. Wherever it doesn't work. You have to give them input.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, honey. No, it does matter. And then you tell them, the next thing you know, I'm like freaking floating up in heaven. And she's like, I told her to go to Maui, and she's going to Tahoe. What the fuck?
Watching down on this?
Yeah.
Where the hell are my ashes going?
I won't give a shit. But then, I can't say anything because I said I didn't care. But if I say something, she's okay with it. It happens every week with dinner.
Isn't that funny how that works?
You have any suggestions? I'm like, honey, I love everything you make. She's like, you're not helping the matter.
This isn't helping.
And then I realized, okay, I'm not being present. Let me breathe. let's do the chicken pesto. No, you can't keep going to chicken pesto. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta come up with something new. I'm like, all right, give me a break. Give me a couple more breaths.
What else I got?
And then all of a sudden I'll start breathing and she'll come up with like 5 ideas. I'm like, that's a good one. And I didn't even have anything to do with it. I just had to pay attention. It was brilliant.
See what happens when you fall into that present moment?
When you're breathing, yeah, it works. I get freaking gold stars. But then when I'm not present, the gold stars disappear like freaking mad.
Well, it's funny. I mean, just real quickly, imagine if you were trying to tell your stomach, digest this here. Wait, don't forget that piece. This, that. Like, you'd be sitting here going, oh my God, I can never eat again. What the hell's going on? We don't ever try to police our bodies or tell ourselves how to do this or how to do that. So why are we doing that in our experience, in our everyday lives? And I've heard that in the past, and it really opened my eyes because it's like, hey, life is going to life. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to do its thing. Be present for it.
But
enjoy that ride.
Yeah, when you become present, you know not to eat the cheese because it upsets your stomach, right? Like, it's not that, like, over time, like, you're just an idiot if you keep eating the foods that hurt you. And there's something deeper than just the cheese. Like, again, there's correlations there, but there's something deeper. But at the moment, like, if I don't want my stomach to hurt, I just simply don't eat the cheese. Mm-hmm. And, if I don't want my wife to yell at me, I simply breathe and be present with her. And it doesn't matter what the topic, it could be a tough topic. It always turns out amazing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what it's about. But if I'm just like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
And it could be something fun like, hey, where do you want to go on the next trip? And I'm like, oh, I don't got time for this. It turns out really bad. Mm-hmm. And I'm sleeping on the couch.
And well, we all have those experiences. Yeah. And everybody can relate to that with friends, family, loved ones, all of the above. So take it easy. Don't we so overthink everything. Allow yourself not to think a little bit this week. Allow yourself to, be present. Allow yourself to breathe. Pull yourself back. And just watch the little things that happen. And I promise, through those little things, or maybe big things, you'll begin to notice that you are better off in the present moment than you are lost in thought.
And when these little things come up, either write them down or just do a snapshot in your head. You don't necessarily have to write down. And the more we recognize, like, oh my God, I was present, breathing, and this conversation really well, the more you do that, the more the neural pathways in your brain want to go do that more.
Yeah.
It actually realizes, okay, this is working because we are pattern recognition beings. So we are recognizing, my God, the more I pay attention, the more my life is. Yeah. So why wouldn't I do it more and go from 5% to 6% and therefore thereon and so forth and everything else? And you realize, wow, this actually does work. Yeah. How deep can I go with this? Oh, that's the question you have to ask yourself every day. It's endless. But when I mean deep, intricate. Like a great musician only has to intricately play a note, not completely abstract to change it. So these things that you notice every day, you're getting a little bit better, and then you become a master at this. Yeah. Every day, just slowly. And if you so-called fail, who cares? So what? You've learned something. You learn not to do that again. Mm-hmm. I learned that a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know what you mean about that. We beat ourselves up about taking failure this certain way, or that we can't. And it doesn't sting as much when you're present because you realize, hey, like you just mentioned, I learned one way that doesn't exist. Okay, I'm going to pick myself back up and I'm going to be right back at it. And there's no better feeling than that, guys. Yeah. Especially because when it does work out and, you do find your footing, you are just so glad you never gave up or gave into the old stories.
Yeah, another way of looking at failure is just a moment in time where you were not necessarily conscious and it brought you into consciousness. So it actually served a purpose. It served a great purpose. And just stop harping on it. Don't try to figure out where you went wrong. Just stay in the moment. As time goes on, you'll recognize the pattern where you went wrong, and you won't do that. You don't need to sit there and think about it all day long. That's just ridiculous. Because next time the situation comes up, it'll be a different scenery. So you can't really worry about that. You can't think about that too much. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. So when you're in the present state through breathing, when a thought comes in, act on it as best you can and see what happens. Because the universe doesn't give information haphazardly. It doesn't. Just like your GPS doesn't. If you make a right, if you're going somewhere and the GPS says make a right, if you fulfill the action of making the right, then it will give you more and then more and so on and so forth. The next thing you know, you're at the destination which you asked for. How you got there, That's the journey. But you got there. And when you get there, because you've never been there, it's like, oh my God. So refrain from how it's supposed to look. If I'm going to, say, I've been to Maui a bunch of times. I've never been to Fiji. So I go to Fiji, and the only thing I can picture is what Maui looks like. I might not like Fiji, right? Now, I'm expecting to see water, somewhat of a bluish color. But I have to refrain from everything else that's in Maui, because if that's the case, I might as well just go to Maui and know what I know. Mm-hmm. So, but if I'm picturing Maui and I go to Fiji, I'm going to be like, oh. Or I might be pleasantly surprised. I don't know. But if I'm just completely opened up, yes, I'm going to be near water. I'll be in a tiki hut over the water type of thing. But the rest is like, let's explore this, see what happens. That's where the fun comes in.
It is. It's in the unknown.
It is in the unknown. And that's why we're going to a new place that we've never been to. So how can you put in your brain, this is the way it ought to be? I'm like, well, you've never been here.
It's through repetition.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have repeatedly told ourselves, I need to figure this out. If this doesn't happen, I'm not going to enjoy this. I better make sure this is there. We've done that our entire life, and we've been told by friends, families, teachers, media, television, everything you can name, that's normal.
Yeah.
And so we all think this state that we're all walking around in, which, by the way, is literally insane by definition, is quote-unquote normal. No, we do not live a normal life. And let's look at, these tribes, that live in Africa and live in these different areas. To them, that is normal. To us, we're going, what the hell is this? That is so, unnormal, or they could be doing this. No. Whatever you do over and over, and how you react to those situations, that's what becomes your new sense of normal. So we have trained our society here in the West and here in the United States that over compulsive thinking, that not being good enough, that being separate, or hating another person for how they think or what they wear is normal, and we've been taught that. And Frank and I are here to tell you it's not normal.
No, it's not.
That's a big reason we have this show.
Yeah, and life isn't meant to figure out; it's meant to explore.
No.
If someone's like, hey, have you figured out life? I'm like, no, but I've learned a few things. Because I see correlations in life when when I'm present. Life, it doesn't matter what situation it is. It really ends up like, there's preferential situation when I'm present, and that's right then and there. I'm noticing, but even in situations that aren't, there's a weird feeling that comes over you, a heightened alert that you might have to help save somebody. But there's something weird and gratifying about that. Not that you wish for that position, but if I was present, but if I wasn't, I'm panicking. And I don't like the feeling of panic. I don't. So take it to the breath. And for this week, go in and do this little self-experiment. When you're sitting there talking to someone, just breathe. And don't try to figure out what to say. Allow it to come out. Just give your attention to your breath and see what happens. And write it down. Or take a snapshot of it, and the more you do this, the more of those opportunities you get, and the more you'll do it. And if you'd like to share with us, send us your comments or your little self-experiment that you did with yourself, and you can reach us at perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com. We love to hear these stories.
Yeah, please share them our way. And something I've done these last couple of weeks, if we've been focusing on this too, is set a reminder on your phone. Pick a time, so just set a daily reminder. It can be in the morning, afternoon, your lunch break, when you get home from work. But just set a timer that says, or a reminder that says, breathe 1 minute. And that little reminder, when it comes up, and you focus on the breathing, and you do this for week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, all of a sudden now there's this level of awareness about the breath that never existed before. And so you put this attention, this focus on something, and watch the changes that come from that. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's the more you focus on something, the more your attention goes to that, the more it grows. So bring your attention to the breath and watch yourself find no issue, handle or watch yourself beginning to experience what Frank and I are talking about.
And you literally watch your life in the internal and external literally start to change.
Absolutely.
You'll notice the difference. It's that and simple. I think for a lot of us, we think it's too simple, but it's the greatest practice is breath.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
We will see you guys next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. And like Frank said, perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com. We love to hear about what you guys are doing on your end.
All right. Peace out and breathe easy.
Breathe easy.
All right. Have a great one, guys.